What's up, players? Welcome to another special episode of Ready Press Play. This is our Game Awards recap episode. Obviously, we have not been doing this consistently for a while, but we did say we're going to do inconsistent episodes, and we met last week to do our share of predictions for the Game Awards, especially who we thought the winners were going to be. We also tried to predict some announcements. And today we're meeting again after that to kind of look back at that stuff and talk about some other topics, including our end of year wrapped recaps from the various platforms, E3 being officially dead, and much more. I'm joined today, as always, by my illustrious co-host, Mr. Louis Menchaca.
You know, Dan, you are ever such the perfectionist that you are like, I don't like this old layout, and let me just redesign all these boxes and stuff like that. Come on, man. We're like, the show is already over, and you're like, let's just do a little redesign.
Yeah, why not? I mean, we hadn't done a video, right, in so long that we had we had
Old
gone through a new
assets.
iteration. Yeah, we had gone through a new iteration of our assets,
hmm
and we had not updated the overlay.
And your
Yeah,
Twitch,
and
your
we
Twitter was, or your X was old, and yeah.
yeah, all of that stuff. So of course, go and follow me on X at Power Up Dan, and of course, you can follow Louis at
Chakalaka 88s. But you know what? I gotta
there
say
you go.
that there's a lot of stuff to talk about and stuff like that, and I think it's really interesting that like we hit record on like Wednesday I think or Tuesday, and
Mhm.
last it was last Tuesday, and then like GTA news happened, and then we record today. It's another news came out. We'll get into that here in a second, but
Yeah,
or we could
we
segue.
kind of hit
Yeah,
We kind of hit the biggest. We happened to like with these two random episodes at the end of the year. We managed to like. It's probably like the biggest 2 weeks in gaming news in the entire year, right? Like just in the sense of like, not in the amount of news, but just like we happened to accidentally do a podcast right as the GTA 6 trailer had just landed.
hmm
And now we're going to kind of once again accidentally doing a podcast when we just found out that E3 is officially done for good.
hmm yeah. That's
Um,
I feel like that meme where it's like what was it for like the Flash, where he's like, doing the peace sign at the grave, like that.
mhm,
That like,
mhm.
so but yeah, no, that's I'm not surprised. I don't think anybody in the industry was surprised. Truth be told, it's kind of like the writing was on the wall. And yeah, oh yeah,
Actually,
yeah, what's up?
it seems like you want to get something off your chest, so go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to apologize to the listeners or the video people last week. I just got to say, audio problems, my fault. Not happening. I'm looking at my audio. It's good. It's gonna make it so much easier for Dan to edit. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me tell you something about that, Lewis. So last week, right, we recorded. Lewis edited the podcast, posted it on YouTube. I went to watch it on YouTube first. I turned it on the TV, right, and you're the person that starts talking. And so you're very quiet. I couldn't hear you at all. And so I start pumping up the volume on the TV. I'm like, what the hell happened with the audio here? What the hell did Lewis do? And I have to set my TV's volume to like 90 out of 100 so that I can hear you. And then when it switches to me talking, it was just
I
blast like
blew your
so
speakers out.
loud. Yeah, and
Oops.
that's why I think I that happened, and I think I texted you right away. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I basically said I think the video. I think we should just take it down because I straight up think it is basically
Unwatchable. Yeah.
unusable. Yeah, unwatchable the way it is because it's like either like in order to hear you fine, I need to be overly loud, or in order to hear me fine, then you're so quiet that you can't be heard. So
Yeah.
go and listen to it on podcast feeds instead.
Thank
But maybe
God.
you can watch this one on our YouTube.
Thank God we record in separate tracks because I was able to like bump myself up and amplify myself even on my quiet parts. So it saved the audio.
Hmm.
So there's that. It's totally listenable on podcast services. And after we're done recording, I will set the video to private.
All right, all
yeah.
right.
yeah. But
Let's get
anyways,
into let's
yeah.
get into our topics though. So
Yeah.
let's just jump right in. E3. If you check their website today, e3expo.com, they put in this message that says, after more than 2 decades of E3, each one bigger than the last, the time has come to say goodbye. Thanks for the memories. GG WP. Good game, well played. Um, Louis just said this didn't surprise anybody. We had been talking for a while about how E3 was becoming kind of smaller and smaller, just in the sense of like less and less companies were participating on it over time,
Hmm.
especially the last few ones that happened. And then I think the pandemic was the true nail in the coffin, right? Because they kind of probably like maybe reinvented themselves or kept going. But after the pandemic, when they canceled E3 2020, then we went into this era of like, and I even had to like look up like on Wikipedia, Lewis, to remember like which E3s got canceled, which ones were digital, like what happened, because they kept like every year leading up to E3, we would hear about how, oh, they're partnering up with the new company and they're gonna do this and it's gonna be different. It's gonna be this digital thing or this hybrid thing and yada yada. And then we would get there and it would be canceled. And it turns out that since the pandemic in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, 4 years, we only got one E3. So out of the last 4 years, we've only had one E3 on, I believe, 2021.
It was the digital one,
And it
man.
was
Yeah,
a digital one, yeah.
that
And
sucked
all
ass.
the all the other years it was canceled, and instead we had the other shit. And here's the interesting thing too, is like we almost like I almost can't remember which years we had E3s or not in this time frame, because even when we didn't have E3, we had Jeff Keighley, we had Summer Game Fest, we had like
IGN
IGN
Summer Game
doing,
Fest or Summer whatever. Yeah.
yeah, doing things. We had the individual companies releasing directs and connects and showcases and all whatever kind of state of play, whatever kind of word they want to use for it. And so it still kind of felt like we had E3 anyway. So it's almost like my brain just kind of blurred everything together. And I had to go like, wait, did we not? Did we have an E3 this year? Did we not? Did we have it last year? I couldn't quite remember. And we really haven't had one in a long time.
Doesn't feel that
Like
way.
an
Yeah.
ESA, yeah, an ESA ran E3 and it didn't feel that way. So in all of those terms, the writing has been on the wall. However, I do feel sad that we did not get to see, like, I wish that we could have seen like a final, like almost like a goodbye E3, like a final ESA ran E3, to see almost like their last final attempt at saving it,
Hmm.
because we didn't even get that. Like the E3 that ended up being like, with the exception of the digital, like, so the last E3 to ever have happened will have been a digital E3, and the last physical, like in person E3 would have been the one from 2019, which at that moment in time, nobody would have guessed it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how like my last week working in an office, like I've been working from home for years now. My last week working in an office in March of 2020, I would have never guessed then that that would be the last week possibly of my life that I would work in an office, and so far that has been true.
Damn.
um
Lucky you.
and so, yeah, and so it's just interesting to think, like, I went to E3 in 2019, and I actually had a friend, my good friend Roberto. I'm pretty sure it was that year that he flew over to California. He went to E3 for the first and last time of his life. And it's interesting, like, I think of that E3, and like nobody had any idea at that point. Like, that was pre-pandemic, like nobody had any idea that would have been the last E3 to go to, you know?
Yeah. Lucky you.
So
A lot of people on Twitter. I was on Twitter this earlier today, and people were like talking about how like that they viewed like making it to E3, going to E3 as like making it or whatever, but now they don't.
right.
The sentiment's no longer there. It's like I used to think that way, but now it's not. And, like it's kind of sad, really. But a lot of people were like, eulogizing E3 and on Twitter and on YouTube and stuff like that. And you got to pay your respects and stuff like that and all that stuff. And yeah, the E3 had a lot of hype moments. Can't take that away. I started watching E3 in 2012 and watched every one of them since. It was like I would take days off of work, like request vacation days, just to sit my ass on the couch with a bowl of popcorn and just watch the announcements and stuff like
Hmm.
that. It was like kind of like my little ritual and stuff like that. And I don't think that's gonna stop per se. I think we're still getting like we were talking about how like you still feel like you're still getting that, although the importance of it is like kind of like non-centralized now, and
Yeah.
now it's instead of it being like 4 or 5 days of like like concentrated announcements, it's like 4 or 5 weeks of announcements. So it's like not as quite as hype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same, and I don't think it ever will be quite the same. Like, I even think that the E3s that I've I've actually been so I was working in California, and I got to go to E3, never to showcase anything, but just as an attendee. My work would give us like a day off if we wanted to go, basically. And I got to go 3 years in a row, so like the final three E3s, basically. And I think the first one that I did, I was actually there for all 3 days, and then the other two, I just went for a day or two. Um, and it was a thing, like it was an experience, but I don't think like I think a lot of people probably overhyped it. People that went are probably happy that they got to have that experience, but I also say to the people that are disappointed that they never got to go, that it probably wasn't quite what you would have expected. Like I as a kid and watching E3 from afar, I had this particular impression of E3 where I thought like everybody got to play everything and go to all the press conferences and stuff like that. That's not quite how it works. It's a big show floor. You got to go and stand in line for a long amount of time to go and test a short demo of a game. The behind closed door stuff is only for journalists and like special guests and stuff like that. So you don't get to see that anyway, even if you are there. And then like the press conferences are invite only,
Yeah,
effectively. And
every
I have no idea how people got into them.
every press conference was had its own badge. Like I was watching a YouTuber
Hmm.
talking about how he went to the Ubisoft and the Bethesda one, but that's it, and like he wasn't invited to the other ones. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that that's how it works. I thought it's like an E3 badge gets you everywhere or whatever, but it doesn't quite work that way. Um, but yeah, I wanted to ask you, do you have any like favorite E3 moments and stuff like that, like either in person or as a watcher on the couch?
Like as a watcher, there was an I don't know if there was like a particular moment, but it was like that era of E3 right before Nintendo got out of it, and started doing the directs where you still had the in-person Nintendo press conferences. And I remember where they showed like
The Wii U.
Skyward Sword for the first time and the Wii U and like the Wii remotes, like Miyamoto trying to like show like the Skyward Sword like sword movement, the Wii remote's not
Yeah.
working. Like I know it's like sad, yeah. It's like kind of sad and cringy because of that was almost like kind of the charm of it in a way. Like I enjoyed that a lot. Um
The Wii music, like the awkward, the
right,
awkward
right,
Wii
right.
music.
Like I just loved those like awkward old like Nintendo ones. Like
There was
the
the
freaking
Reggie, where you were introduced to Reggie. He's like, I'm about to kicking ass and making games or whatever like that, or my body's
right,
ready and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
That's in the GameCube era, and that's before like I was watching it, but I have watched that like later.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those kinds of moments. And PlayStation has had like great press conferences like over and over again. Before they pulled out, I don't know if you remember, like right before they pulled out, the last one they did was one that was heavily criticized because it was just four games.
They had
They were in
nothing. Yeah,
four different
yeah.
areas or something. So like the people had to keep moving, or like people only got to see one. I don't know how that worked.
Yeah, like here,
Um,
let me just sit here like in the cozy like auditorium and play acoustic guitar with you or whatever. Talk about The Last of Us and yeah,
yeah, it was very interesting though. Like I feel like that one was like they tried to do something different. It was very like weird and unique, but like people just lampooned it because it wasn't what they wanted. But before that, I was actually heavily critical of this. PlayStation had two or three E3s in a row where people called it like the year of dreams, right? It was
yeah,
like it was the
yeah.
year of dreams, and then it was like, oh, it's the year of dreams again,
I
and then
think it
it's
was
like,
like
and the thing,
2014 and 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, and the thing that I was like, so I was very critical of those particular E3s in hindsight because they filled us with dreams that they did not fulfill until way later. It was like they I actually remember one of those E3s was when they revealed Final Fantasy VII Remake,
Hmm.
and we got that game in 2020.
Yeah,
So they're
they
basically just like,
they announced
here's
that
trailers.
the Kickstarter for Shenmue 3 goes live now. Yeah,
Yes.
that one. Yeah,
So it was very much like, here's everything that's in development, even if we haven't started it yet, and everybody's losing their minds, but we didn't get to see any of that shit. Like that's why like there was a time frame where the Sony E3s kind of sucked because they had nothing new to say. It was like it was all the same. It was like, oh, here's
an update.
Spider-Man
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
here's God of War
Again.
again, here's whatever, like Death Stranding. I don't even know. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like fucking Final Fantasy VII Remake, we got to see so many times before that ever came out. The Last of Us Part 2 as well.
And then what's
Um,
crazy is like Final
so
Fantasy VII Remake was like bullshit. Like they made all of those CGI stuff, making it look like gameplay, but that was
yeah.
just a concept or whatever. I'm like, God damn.
See, I like the format of E3 where it's like, give me the next year and then give me a tease of like like deep dive on the next year's worth of stuff and then give me a trailer for something after, right? Just like one thing, right? Like don't give me like there was an Xbox conference a few years ago that was heavily criticized as well because they showed all these games and it was all like I think it was like the conference was in 2020 and all the games said like 2022, 2023,
Or no
and then
release date.
people were
Yeah.
like, man, yeah, like freaking Hellblade 2, we're still waiting for that,
We
right?
still haven't
Like,
even seen
we're
Indiana
gonna,
Jones, like, like an
yeah.
update.
So I don't like that. I think it's like it's really easy to do like an amazing show if you're just gonna like open your hand and show everything that's in development, but then it's just like it leads to like disappointing years after that. So I prefer the balanced like okay, we got some good stuff coming out now and like oh, there's that one thing we're looking forward to. Um
Yeah, I mean,
dude,
ideally you would want to do the next 12, maybe even 18 months tops. Like,
mhm.
I think that's true, but like if you do that, you don't have a slate, like unless you're like Nintendo and you have like Nintendo 2017 Switch year, like where like every month is a
Mhm.
banger after banger. If you can't do that, then you're never gonna have a good E3, really. I think you can if you here's my thought process. I think in the early like in the first year, maybe even the first 2 years of a console's life cycle, you need to show your hand. You need to tell me that you're developing the new game and the series that people will love. It's like like
Mhm.
even like Resurrect a series. You need to like basically give us a year of dreams like right now to get the console sales going, to get hype going
Right.
and get sales going. Because here's the thing, there's like a bit of a chicken and the egg kind of like what is it called, that thing where like they one begets the other. Like, okay, so you get more console sales, which means you get more developers making games, but which gets you more console sales when games come out. So it's like it's like a feedback loop. That's what I was trying to think about. A
Yeah.
feedback loop that's a positive feedback loop. More console sales means more developers, more games, which means more console sales, which means more developers, more games. But the reverse is true, where if you're not like hyping everyone up and drumming up hype right from the get go, you're not going to have as much developer enthusiasm, which means your release slate is going to be a little dry at times. And when that happens,
Right,
you
right.
get less sales, which gets you less support. So I think you sort of have to like with Nintendo, like I did an analysis of like like every Nintendo Direct, like almost for the entire history on Level One Gaming, and one of the things that we noticed, or at least that we talked about, is like their first E3 with the Wii U, they were talking about already like from the jump that Mario Kart's in development, Smash is in development, like the new 3D
Yeah.
Mario in development. Like they were like just showing their hand, and a lot of subsequent Nintendo Directs were updates to already announced games. You know what I mean? Like that's,
Right, right.
and I think in hindsight, like when you talk about like the historical stuff, it's not as cool to be like, oh yeah, this is an update. But when you're living in the
Well,
moment, it's better off. You're better off that way.
right. Like there's a balance there. The problem is when games get indefinitely delayed and delayed and delayed and you're seeing them over and over again and then I feel like it almost like I don't know if it pays off like when I think about an example like Dreams, right? Like we actually saw Dreams
In
in the
20.
same showcase that they announced the PS4. Like when we saw the PS4 for the first time, we saw Dreams. And then we didn't get that until the PS5 was basically out or almost out or something.
Yeah.
And so it's those kinds of things that I think need to be avoided. Another game that's kind of true with right now is Metroid Prime 4,
Yeah.
right? Which we still have no idea like what's going on with that. And we saw that when the Switch was revealed, I believe,
Yeah.
or at least around that time
Year
frame.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say real quick. There's two things I gotta say about this E3 stuff. Number one, Nintendo being the first person or the first company to pull out and become digital was kind of like the early writing on the wall about like the days are numbered, because company was taking control of its own, marketing. They didn't need
Hmm.
E3 and all that kind of stuff. Number one, and then number two, my favorite E3 moment was the price reveal of the PS4 comboed with how to share a
Mm.
game, like how to share a game on the
Yeah.
PS4, like that. I remember watching that live, and I was like cheering on my couch, like "Wow!" Like I was cheering
Which
with the audience, like pop off.
that
That was a
that's
pop
that's
off.
got to be those like those two presentations, like the Xbox One presentation paired with the PS4 presentation with the digs at the Xbox One. Um, I think that's probably the most influential E3 to have ever happened, right? Because that defined the
A
console
generation, yeah,
generation and the I would argue even the next generation, like
yeah,
the console war landscape was set by those E3 conferences,
yeah. There's
right?
two
Like
things to say. Number one, it's sad that even what we're in 2023 and that was 2013, 10 years later, Xbox is still paying for it. That's kind of crazy. Number
yeah.
one. Number two, we're kind of living in that future that we hated that back then, and now it's true now, and we like it, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
And a
the
third,
always
yeah,
online. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. The third thing I want to add, actually, now that I think about it, is I think I saw like an interview with Phil Spencer where he talks about how like losing that console generation was the worst generation to ever lose because a lot of
Hmm.
people started their digital libraries at that time, which means they carried over.
Yeah.
So like, if you're gonna lose a generation, that was the worst one. So
Yeah, and the worst one to lose as bad as they did, right? Like they didn't lose it like 60 to 40. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like 60% market share to 40%. It was more like 80 to 20 or 90 to 10 or something. So which is that's kind of the sad part of that for Xbox. And it's funny, I watched that Dom Metric Xbox presentation that everybody makes fun of, and when I
TV.
watched it, see, before the memes, before I saw the cuts that cut like video that Lewis is referencing, I watched it. I was like, that was fine. All right, that was okay. Like I thought the features seemed interesting, like the features that they were talking about or whatever. But then it became such a meme. It was like the way that they cut it. Like another thing is like whoever made that video, the video you're referencing where they like went through and they cut all the TV stuff together, like that person is partially responsible too for Xbox just being like playing catch up to this day. Isn't that insane? Like the power that dude or dudette or whoever did, like the power that they had
Yeah,
um by doing that.
that's crazy.
But yeah, it's got to be probably the most epic or one of the most epic E3 moments.
Mic drop for sure. Yeah.
I yeah, I want to give a shout out to a few like personal things that I want to highlight. The year after, I think I'm pretty sure it was the year after that or maybe 2 years later where Xbox One was really behind, but they were trying to turn things around. I think Phil Spencer was like had been heading things for a little bit. And he was like, Xbox gotta have games. Xbox gotta have games. So they went and they did a press conference, and it was one of the best press conferences ever. It was like game after game after game after game. It was super well paced too. It was like you're seeing a game for like a few minutes, on to the next one, and they showed a Fable reboot, and they showed Scalebound, and
Hmm.
they showed Phantom Dust, and they showed like all of these things, and all of those games got canceled. Like
Yeah.
literally, like they had this like awesome showcase, and then within the year, like half of them like had gotten canceled or delayed or whatever. Like a bunch of those games like got delayed multiple times and then didn't turn out good. Like Crackdown 3 was another one.
Hmm.
Um and so like I guess I think of that one as a good example of like a good E3 press conference could trick you. Like it could like cuz I remember I walked out thinking like, okay, I think Xbox is turning things around. And then we got into that loop right after that. This like loop of like, well, next year Xbox got it.
Yeah.
Like next year,
Next year,
next year, next year,
like
right?
Xbox acquired this
Um
studio, like they're gonna show their goods next year. Next year, yeah, yeah. Things like they acquired
yeah,
this.
and
Oh, or whenever they were like their announcement on stage was, "We bought this studio. Hi, Ninja Theory. Hello, hello. Yeah, thank you for being part of the new Xbox team." Or what was that?
yeah,
The team that made like the fuck.
Hellblade?
No, no, no. The team that made the Lucas Arts like point and click adventures.
Oh, Double Fine.
Double Fine, yeah, like they were bringing Double Fine on
Yeah.
stage and be like, "Welcome to the Microsoft family" and stuff like that. Yeah. Speaking of which, I think they only made one game since, or released one game since.
They put out Psychonauts too.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
That might be it, yeah. I mean, it was a Game of the Year nominee,
That is true.
right? So maybe.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, like the Xbox games have started to come out. Like the last few years, we got like, like two new Forza games. We got the new Halo game. We got Redfall. We got Starfield. The thing is, they're not quite getting the critical reception that maybe, like with some exception, most of these games are not getting the same, like the critical exception reception that Xbox would have hoped for, right? And I think that that's a whole conversation on
The
its own, like
Xbox
the
tax.
Xbox
Yeah.
tax and all that, right?
Let me ask you this:
Um,
Do those
mhm.
games benefit from Game Pass, or were they hindered by Game Pass?
I don't know. I think that's a tough.
Like, would
I
Starfield
think
popped off more if it was not on Game Pass?
I I don't think Game Pass has influenced the like. All right, so if anything, Game Pass makes it so that anybody can go and play the game, right? So I
Because
think it being on Game Pass versus not being on Game Pass, I think it being on Game Pass does make it like gather more attention because
yeah,
just naturally more people are going to play it, more people are going to stream it.
because I
But
feel
I
like
think where they're missing out is not being on PlayStation,
because I feel like
to
the
be
narrative. I
honest.
feel like the narrative is like people discover games on Game Pass, or they want to go out and support a game on Game Pass or whatever.
Hmm.
Like, there's like this, like the game. Someone at Level One Gaming, like coined like the Game Pass. I can't remember the terminology he said, or basically like a rising tide lifting all boats.
Elevation,
Yeah,
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. I don't know. I forgot what it was, but yeah, like it's like Game Pass is like a marketing arm to the game, but like I don't know if that narrative is still going. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm certain it varies from game to game, right? Like I think that every game story with Game Pass is different. I could see a situation where some developers get on it and regret it because they realize that they could have sold so many more copies if they were not there. But also they don't know, like nobody knows what the other branch of their like, their decisions is, right? Like maybe you put your game on Game Pass and your game pops off or whatever, and but you don't get any sales. You just made the sum that Microsoft gave you, and you go like, man, fuck, maybe I could have sold it and made all this money. But maybe if you would have sold it, and it wasn't on Game Pass, maybe nobody would have even noticed your game, and then you wouldn't have made any money anyway, right? So it's kind of hard to like, it's hard to truly predict that. I will say this. I think that some of these games do suffer from not being on PlayStation for two reasons. Number one, they're closing themselves off for like a big, like the number one console market right now. But then number two, there are some vicious like PlayStation haters online that will just go and like review bomb shit and like all this crap. And I feel like that does bring some of these games down. I said it to Lewis, I think off record. I didn't I kind of started Starfield. I didn't play too much. But just like from the outside looking in, I do believe that game would have been received much better if it was on PlayStation. If it was like literally the exact same like game, like step by step, if it was on PlayStation, it would have been a Game of the Year nominee.
Yeah, people would have
Um,
bought it. They would have been like, oh, like championing it. Like, yeah, it's
yeah,
Bethesda. It's a big deal. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's honestly pretty wild that like a Bethesda, like the big Bethesda Game Studios release of the year was not nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Because like Skyrim, won the majority of the games of the year, like everywhere. And then you had like Fallout 3, same thing. That was before Skyrim.
Fallout
Fallout
4.
4 after Skyrim, it was a game that was actually heavily criticized, but it still made its way on that conversation like everywhere. I remember it. And I don't know. And when you think about like it's not BGS, it's not Bethesda Game Studios, but other Bethesda published games, you got the Doom games are always there. You got like Wolfenstein, like sometimes it's also kind of in the conversation when there's a big one. Deathloop, Deathloop, which was on PlayStation, by the way, it was nominated for Game of the Year. You're telling me like Starfield is not in the level of all these other games? I just kind of don't believe it. I feel like it got knocked down because it was an Xbox exclusive.
Damn.
Yeah.
Trying to think here. I feel like there was another E3 question I had, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, otherwise, I think we pretty much covered everything. It's dead.
Yeah.
Good memories. Yeah.
Final shout out I wanted to give. This is like a very personal, two very personal ones to me. It was like when Donkey Kong Country Returns got announced. Like I remember, like I was watching the Nintendo E3, and there hadn't been a Donkey Kong Country game since the Super Nintendo. And I was watching it, and it's like the screen goes black, and I just started hearing the music, the like, the little like drums and stuff of like the Donkey Kong theme. And I lost it. I was like, oh my god, like they're bringing Donkey Kong back. I was like super excited for it. And then shortly after that, when the 3DS was out, and the 3DS, it kind of had like a bit of a rough like beginning, like we didn't really know what was coming, and they had this thing where it was like back to back to back, like 5 different games being presented for the 3DS, and it was like Mario Kart 7, Luigi's Mansion 2,
Mario 3D
like
World,
I think Mario 3D
Star
World,
Fox
I think
64,
what Star Fox 64, and I think one of the Zelda like remakes, and
Ocarina of
yeah, it
Time.
was
Yeah,
just like,
Ocarina of Time. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember I saw that, like, I had just gotten a 3DS, and I was like, okay, my purchase feels validated.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, they showed all those games and they presented it as, like, hey, like, in the next, like, 12 months or whatever, like, all these games are coming out on the 3DS. And I was like, okay, cool. I want to buy all of these. Um, so, yeah, just a few shout outs that I wanted to give. But aside from that, I'm done with my E3 thoughts. Do you have anything else, Liz?
No, I don't have anything else. I just got to say that it was awesome watching this, and I just hope that tradition doesn't really truly die. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, rest in peace, E3. We will miss you, and we love you, despite all your problems. Uh, so Lewis, we started getting those end of year recaps coming out of the different companies. I don't think Nintendo has put out theirs yet.
I haven't seen an Xbox
But
one yet either, unfortunately.
Xbox has it.
Oh, they
Um,
have.
I know you don't play on Xbox, so there's probably not going to be much there for you. But if you just look up like Xbox year in review on Google, you can probably find it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was actually Lewis's idea to bring this up and look at these and share them. I am not like I actually did very little gaming this year compared to my average. I'm already not like the most like hardcore gamer that's playing like a shit ton of stuff, right? Like even when we're doing the podcast. But this year even less so. Like this was the year that I probably gamed less. Like I probably gamed the least in my entire adult life. I did this year. It's still and even then I still found time to put in quite a bit of random things here and there, but just wanted to give that caveat. Therefore, I will also not share everything. I'll just share what I think is interesting or relevant
I
from
uh,
my recaps.
I gotta say that it's interesting that all three companies, Twitch, PlayStation, and Xbox, all released their year in reviews at the same day. It's like, how did they all land
Yeah.
on today? Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, I have my year in reviews. What is Dan? I'll give you one guess as to what is my number one most played game on PlayStation.
On PlayStation.
Hmm.
Oh, it's got to be. You did mention that you were back on Fortnite,
Yeah.
so I think it's got to be Fortnite.
Yes, it is in
Yeah.
fact Fortnite. I have played 8 games in 2023. Played 8 games. That's kind of a
Okay.
little low for me, but whatever. Let's see here. These so much. Okay, God of War Ragnarok 63 hours. Oh shit! God of War Ragnarok is my number one game.
Oh, that was gonna be my second guess if it wasn't Fortnite, but
Okay,
I was
interesting.
assuming it was Fortnite.
You know,
Yeah.
I did quit Fortnite because I stopped when I stopped buying skins, I stopped playing the game. So I only put in 40 hours this year. That's actually not that bad, and most of it was probably in the last
So, can you say again how many hours you put into God of War?
63.
I have how do you have 63 hours in that game and I have 28?
I platinumed it. Or wait, did I? Yeah,
Okay,
I think I
okay.
platinumed it.
Yeah. Okay. Dang.
Yeah.
That
How many
given that it's double
how many
given that it's
trophies?
double the time. I somehow only have 10 trophies. That doesn't
31.
sound right. Dang. Dang. All right. Well, I did beat the game, you guys. I swear it.
Okay.
Um
Here we go. Number 1, God of War Ragnarok at 63 hours. Number 2 is Fortnite at 39 hours. Number 3 is The Quarry, a game that I played with my nieces when they came over at, let's see, 10 hours. Number 4, Until Dawn at 8 hours. And then number 5, the Dark Pictures anthology, Man of Dan, for 6 hours. I played all 3 of those games with my nieces when they came over. We were playing these games together. We were like, go over here, choose this one. Like they were, criticizing my quick time events, reactions, and stuff. But yeah, those are my games. Actually, you know what? That's actually not that bad considering I barely played. Like, I cut out Fortnite and I actually got to play games for the first time. That was my first time playing the Quarry. My first time playing Until Dawn. I played a new game with God of War Ragnarok. You know what? That's got to be like my most gamer ass year ever. And I'm glad that my stats weren't being manipulated by my nephews, like last year's. But anyways, your turn. Oh wait, can I guess your number one game? Is it God of War?
It might it might surprise you, but it's not God of War.
Okay, let me.
God of War is my number two.
I'm gonna. I'm gonna
It's basically
guess.
the one other game that I played this year, and I told you about it,
God
but
damn
you
it.
were not going to remember because it's so random.
Okay,
It's
go
so
for it.
random.
Go for it.
All right, so I have 9 games that I played this year,
Hmm.
but honestly, only 2 with any substance because the rest is just games that I tried like
That's
short, like very quickly.
okay.
But my number one is Dragon Age Inquisition.
It's a
I
little.
played it for 63 hours. And I told this over the phone, Lewis, when we talked
Ah,
on the phone like a few months ago. That's okay that you don't remember. I'm not going to hold it against you.
it's a little.
Um,
It's a little deep cutish, kind of. I mean, it's a good game. It's game of the
yeah,
year, but
yeah,
still, it's a little just
yeah.
off the beaten
So
path.
it it won Game of the Year 2014, which by the way, it was kind of like an off year. Like the big games that year were Dragon Age and Shadow of Mordor, basically. Like is what like the vote was kind of splitting between. We also had Shovel Knight that year. That was actually my personal Game of the Year that year. But I've always been curious about it. I'm curious about the franchise. I know BioWare is working on a new one right now that I might want to jump in when it comes out eventually, God knows when. Um, and so I just kind of figured like, oh, let me try out this game. And then it kind of became this comfort food for me where I would just kind of put in like an hour ish at a time, every once in a while. And then it just kind of added up and I put 63 hours on it. I'm still not done with it. Like I am it's just one of those big open world RPGs that just has like so much to do.
So you haven't
Um
you haven't beat the game yet, or have
no,
you? Oh
no, I
damn.
have not. I'm actually like with this one. I am actually like I am not mainlining it, which I usually do for or spoiler casts and stuff. I'm just like
Are you
leisurely like doing
planning?
everything.
Are you planning on platinuming it?
I would like to. I would like to, but this is the kind of game. Oh, you know what? I can't.
You can't
I
send me that.
can't platinum it because it has shit like trophy. Like it's one of those games where like I would have to beat the entire campaign in the hardest difficulty. Like it has one of those trophies. And I just don't. I'm playing on medium, so I can't. I would have to like restart the whole thing.
Fair enough.
So I'm not gonna get the platinum, unfortunately. But I do want to beat it, and I want to 100% all the content. So I'm probably gonna do that. Second is God of War Ragnarok, which is 28 hours.
Okay.
Which I guess was enough to beat the game because I did beat it. After that, I have hold on, I went to the next slide accidentally. After that, I got Horizon Forbidden West,
Okay.
Jedi Fallen Order, and FIFA 22. But I will not share how much time I have in these games because it's embarrassing.
I flipped you off for the non-video watchers. I flipped you off when you said FIFA. But you know what? I'll take it back.
Uh,
I'll rescind it because you're Brazilian.
I'm also gonna say something here. Three EA games out of these 5. Dragon Age, Star Wars, and FIFA are all EA.
Yeah, it's not a conflict of interest at all. It's so whatever. But you know what? I'll let it
Yeah.
slide. I'll let it slide for Star Wars. If anything, you're probably gonna want to beat Jedi Fallen Order before you beat the sequel. Damn it, I can't remember its name.
Survivor. Yeah.
Jedi Survivor. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, my play style is my gaming style is thrill seeker. You spend 50% of your game time on the edge of your seat, following your goal, no matter what, no matter the odds. Uh,
Leah got that as well. I guess that's for like if it's action or action adventure games. Mine is role player,
hmm.
which I was kind of surprised about, but I mean, well, it's because Dragon Age is an RPG and it's mostly what I played.
Yeah, I'm just looking at
Um,
my stuff here. My game of the months or whatever. We just the only other game that I didn't mention in my top five was The Last of Us. I only put like 2 hours into that game because we averaged about 2 hours per play session per when they come over, but they stopped coming over, so I didn't. Yeah.
Makes sense. My total hours are at 100, like just an even 100. I was pretty happy about that for some reason. What are your total hours, Lewis?
For the is it on the first slide? I'm assuming.
No, this is slide 6 on the
Slides.
PlayStation.
Oh, six. Okay, three, four, five, six. Here we go. Uh, the trophies one? Oh, no, that can't be right.
It's right before it,
Right before it?
I
Okay.
think.
Ah, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. 136 hours.
All right. You
Uh,
game for 36 more hours than me. It was that platinum. That platinum you got.
so I spent 87% of my time playing 5 games, my top five. Interesting. I like how like the next slide or the slide before that was my PlayStation Plus like recommendations. Like it's recommending Dark Pictures Anthology House of Ashes, which makes sense, and Horizon Forbidden West. So cool. So yeah,
Interesting.
the slide after that was my trophy count. Let's see here. In 2023, I earned 72 trophies, and I got a taste of a platinum with God of War. One platinum.
I got 40 trophies, no platinum.
Uh,
Wah, wah.
I gotta say that I gotta take some pleasure in that because it's like you've always been the more gamer than me every year at these wrap ups. By the way, because like such a fake ass gamer, but in the off time I actually got to play video games and stuff like that instead of just But whatever, it's fine. It's fine. Let's see here. Next slide is your social style, lone wolf. Sometimes all you
Me
need is a
too.
single player game and some good snacks. Hey, amen.
Yep. Same here.
And finally, for the last slide, let's see here. What a year, blah blah blah. Share stuff. Yeah, whatever. I can download my
Yeah. It's just a
cards.
recap. Hmm.
Yeah, cool. Also, I got an avatar. I got a voucher for uh, Marvel Spider-Man stickers, like digital collectibles. Interesting. I'll get that later. Uh,
NFTs.
yeah, NFTs. All right. Do you have your Xbox recap?
I do. I can start with that.
Okay, so
So,
I gotta preface this by saying that I gave access to my Xbox account to my nephews, so it's all skewed. There's
oh, and you're gonna
none of these stats
so
are
you're gonna
real.
beat the shit out of me here. So on Xbox this year, I have gamed a mere 29 hours.
163 hours.
Woof. All
Not
right,
me.
all
I'm pretty
right.
sure that's like a majority. Like, for instance, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, that's not me. The only reason why it's on there is because they want to play zombies.
My total games is 7,
9,
and my total achievements is 37.
17.
Okay. So your
My,
family's not going for
no,
the achievements,
no,
I can
they're
tell.
just playing. My gamer score only went up 385. That's pretty sad.
So I'm just gonna go down to where like it's the top games in order. And
Hmm.
my number one game is Ori and the Will of the Wisps with 20 hours because we did it for our OGAT that we never
Yeah,
released.
that was my number two, but I never played the number one, Minecraft. That was not me.
Hmm.
No, Minecraft.
And then
Minecraft accounted for 137 hours. So if my total game time was
wow,
163, god damn, that's like majority. My nephew only
yeah,
fucked me with only one game.
you
Okay.
should do a subtraction there, and then you can know your actual number. And pretty much the only other game I played on Xbox, really, which is my second option, is the game Unpacking. A
Hmm.
little indie game about like unpacking boxes after a move, which is kind of funny. I would have played that in a year that I moved, and I was like losing my mind over how much unpacking I had to do. And then I went and I played a game about unpacking boxes. Um, but that's actually a pretty good little indie game, so I definitely recommend that. Um, and my number three, Lewis, is Fortnite, but
Hmm.
I just played that for 2 hours.
Same. For number three is Fortnite at 8 hours. It's got me
No.
like a little list of games that I played, and one of them was Bravery and Greed, which is a game that I played for Level One Gaming for review. Like I actually reviewed that game. I got
Oh, cool.
Trek to Yomi because we did that for an OGAT. And yeah, Gears of War. I think I played that once with my nephew. And Fall Guys. I didn't even know I had Fall Guys on Xbox. It must have been a Game Pass game. But yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise, I mean, like for the most part, it's as a situation where like I sign into my account on their Xbox because like when they want to play Call of Duty Zombies, when you want to do split screen multiplayer, they are only allowed one guest, and there's like a bunch of them. So they want to, if they want to do more than two players split screen, they want to do like four players split screen. They needed my account and they're signed in, so that way they can sign in there and be able to play. So like there's like a like little like fringe scenarios where if they want to play Fortnite or whatever, they just use my Xbox account. So it's most of this was really not me. I could only claim like the 16 hours for Ori. That was me. I can tell you right now. I don't play Xbox much, which is kind of sad because
Yeah.
I paid for Game Pass all year. By the way, like every
Yeah.
$15, $16 every month coming out of my bank account, and not
So I was doing that.
yeah.
I was doing that too, and I actually just canceled it. I can't. I did this thing a few weeks ago, so I can be very methodical with finances.
Hmm.
Which doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, but I try to like be very I don't know, like very thoughtful about it.
Hmm.
And so I was doing this thing where I was doing my budget for next year.
Yeah.
I was budgeting all of next year, like what I'm going to be spending, like weekly, monthly, like what are my bills, like going through like all my media subscriptions and finding things to cut out, right?
Yeah.
Like I could cut this out, I could cut this out or whatever. And one of the things that I cut out was Game Pass, actually, which I feel kind of sad about because I was always like one of the big defenders of Game Pass. But here's the thing. Game Pass is a great deal if you use it. If you don't use it, then it's not because $15 a month for Game Pass Ultimate does add up. That is like $180 a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's three full price games a year. So if I'm gonna pay, like look at my year, right? Like I played Ori and I played Unpacking. And both of these games
Or sub
like are
$30.
cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I could have spent like 40 $50 and gotten these games and I would have saved money. So,
Yeah.
um I did jump into Forza a little bit. I did jump into like Fall Guys a little bit or like I just it wasn't worth it for me this year. So, I canceled it and when I get to a point where I feel like it would be valuable for me again, then I could maybe sign up again, but in the meantime then I'm
Yeah.
cutting that
I
out.
wonder how many people just like basically essentially demoed games on Game Pass instead of actually playing them.
Yeah.
But me for personally, like there are a handful of games, like even games that we covered on this podcast, like during its life, and we would read the blurbs and be like, "That's a game I'd want to play," like some cool
Right.
hip indie game or whatever. Uh, like they're and I'm pretty sure they're still on Game Pass, like some of the games I'm thinking about, but like I just don't have time. I mean, like
Yeah.
media is always competing for your attention, like between YouTube, Netflix, Disney Plus, and like and then you got PlayStation Premium, and then I'm trying to play. I'm trying to be a Smash player. Like I'm trying to make. I'm almost making the power rankings in Fort Worth. And so,
Yeah.
I'm, yeah, well, what do you got? Just throw that in there. I'm trying to become
You know
be a pro gamer and stuff like that. Yeah.
You can do it, Lewis. I believe in you.
There's a
You
possibility.
know
I'm
what's
making
fun?
a bid for power rankings in Fort Worth. Let's go.
I added like I took out Game Pass, but also a subscription that I added this year that I didn't have before is YouTube Premium. And that one, it's like it's expensive too. Like I'm actually paying for a family plan. I'm sharing it with a few people, so it's like $30 a month. That's a
That's a
expensive subscription.
that's a bill.
But
That's a bill, right? That's not a
yeah,
subscription.
like exactly. But honestly, like I use that constantly
Hmm.
because I have gotten into like a YouTube phase like these last like year and a half, and I was getting ads constantly, and like that time that I'm spending like watching all these ads was valuable to me. So like I would rather cut out the Game Pass, cut out something else, like some other like streaming service that I'm not using, and pay for YouTube Premium and then share it with my family. Instead, it's a more worthy investment for me at this point because I am watching YouTube basically every day,
Yeah, same.
and I wasn't playing Game Pass every day. You know.
I've been paying for YouTube Premium when it was called YouTube Red back in like 2015.
Oh, I
Uh,
remember that.
and apparently, like if you sign up for YouTube Red with an iPhone, you got a higher price per month, which is ridiculous. They actually charged extra for iPhone people.
Wow.
I don't know how they can get away with that kind of pricing, but since I had an iPhone at the time, but I just went into a computer browser and then paid for it and got the lower price, which is insane. Like
Interesting.
I think I was paying for it when it was like $8, $7 a
Oh,
month.
I guess it's because Apple makes a cut. That's
Oh,
why.
and they were using
That's
that as
got
a
to be
payment
why.
processor. Yeah, that's right. That's true. That makes sense. Actually, yeah, I didn't think about that. But yeah, no, I think I benefited for like not just like the non-ads and stuff like that, but like back in the day, you used to like not have unlimited data plans, and so like cutting out
Mm.
ads means you use less data. But the other thing was is that the even when I was grandfathered in, like with the lower price points, it took me a long time before like Google caught up to me and be like, actually, we're gonna raise your price too. But like I actually benefited from having a lower price because I signed up so early into the life cycle. Being going unnoticed. But like much like Netflix, they raise the prices for everyone, not just the. It's not like a forever contract where you're like lock in at this rate and you get to have that beautiful $7 for forever. So yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
Um.
we segued a lot.
Finally, you want to do a Twitch
Yes,
recap,
my
Lewis?
my Twitch recap. Here we go. Let's see here. I have 19 hours of total time watch time. I visited in 27 distinct days. I have my top six categories, and three of them are Smash Bros. I got Smash Ultimate at number one, Smash 64 at number two, and then Smash Melee of all things at number four. That's crazy. Special Events was number three, and then Super Mario RPG at number five, and Fortnite at number six. I sent 29 chats, which is kind of, I'm not much of a talker. Let's see. But yeah, my most watched channels was Behind the Summit Smash because they would stream Ultimate and Melee and all. And then my number two channel that I watched was the Game Awards. So that was very interesting. And then, of course, VG Bootcamp at number four. And yeah, let's see here. And that seems to be it. I don't have any other like special analytics for myself on this other than that. It doesn't give me any other like like you use this emote. It's like it says this was the most you emote on Twitch. Most it's kind of very like broad, not catered to me. But honestly, to be fair, like I don't really be using Twitch like that. Um, I kind of tune in every so often. Yeah, I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
I kind of wish that
I
you got the Twitch recap too. But whatever.
I did it. I did it while we were talking earlier before we started, but I don't remember using Twitch like ever this year,
Uh
basically.
huh.
And so I will read the data, but I don't
Believe
trust
it.
the data. I don't know where it's coming from, but I guess I did it. There must be an explanation here, but it says I watched 23 hours
More than me. Interesting. Okay.
over 21 days.
20, okay, 27
Now,
days. That's less. Okay. Okay.
here's the categories. And once again, I have no idea where this is coming from because I have no memory of this. Number 1 is Star Wars Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith.
Somebody's got your Twitch account.
Number 2 is Super Mario Galaxy 2.
I believe that.
No, number 3 is Stardew Valley. Number 4 is Metroid Prime, and number 5 is Final Fantasy 7.
It's kind of a little all over the
Now,
place.
yeah, now here's the interesting thing, okay? So, I scrolled down a little bit and says you kept coming back for this community, and there's a most watched channel here. There are 22 hours watched on this channel.
Uh huh.
My total was 23. So 22 out of 23 hours was spent on this one channel.
Mm-hmm.
And this channel is Games Done Quick.
Mm.
So here's the thing. I think,
Summer down.
and I
Summer.
somehow
Summer
I forgot
games
about
done
this.
quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when they did the Games Done Quick event or whatever, I think I just popped that on the TV and just left it on. And like maybe I think I remember I did that now. And I was like just kind of checking in from time to time.
And then they
And
changed the
that's where
categories. Yeah, they changed the
yeah.
categories. Okay.
So I think so I guess they played Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith. I guess they played Super Mario Galaxy 2. I didn't remember this at all. Yeah, that's my that's my Twitch recap though.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. My number three category was game special events because of the Game Awards. So yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
Anyways, so yeah, that was fun. Fun little recaps and stuff like that. I actually kind of, I do like them. By the way, I'm not gonna lie. Like it's, I always look at them every year, and I kind of wish Nintendo didn't stop doing them too, because I think Nintendo is like my most played console out of any time. So I would like to know
Right.
what I mean, obviously it's gonna be Smash
I th-
Ultimate, but yeah.
I think Nintendo does do them. I think it's just not out yet. I
Mm.
think it's gonna.
I think
I've gotten.
last year or the year before they didn't do it.
Oh, I didn't remember. I remember getting the emails like from Nintendo with that stuff, but I don't remember how long ago it was. Um, regardless, all right. So now we're gonna move on to kind of our bigger topic of the show, I guess. Even though we're already 55 minutes in,
Let's
so
just do like 30 minutes, 30 minutes, and 30 minutes, 30 minutes to each topic. Because
yes.
we're only doing 3 topics. That's kind of crazy how we're gonna. I wasn't expecting the show to be this long, but go ahead.
There, we it's the topic sparked lots of conversations.
Yeah.
So the Game Awards happened. Um, and I usually like kind of introduce that, and then I give it up to Lewis to share his thoughts first. But I kind of want to hijack it this time and do it first, and then I'll give it up to him. So I did a little watch party at my house. It was a total of 5 people. It was me, my wife Leah, my brother-in-law, my sister, and her boyfriend, and we watched it together. We were waiting for somebody that was late, so we ended up starting it like 30 minutes late, and then we watched it from there. We kind of wanted, and I actually did. I did a little prediction game with them, Lewis. I printed our sheet, like I re-edited a little bit, and I printed our sheet. And I gave it to everybody before the show started to go and mark like who they thought was going to win so that we could compare it. Now, here's the funny thing about this. There was one person in that group that knew nothing about games
All
or
right.
like very little about games. That's my sister. All right.
Oh, okay.
Like I do this podcast and I literally work in games. Leah plays games, like certain games she's into and stuff like that. And she knows stuff through me. Her brother is studying to like be a game developer just like me and he's really into games as well. And the boyfriend also works at EA, right? So like and also is into games. And yet my sister, who had no knowledge about games and just picked choices at random, got almost every single category right and won the game.
How the fuck did she like
Yeah.
clean sweep Alan Wake and Baldur's Gate? Like what the hell?
So somehow, like she was just going based off of the names that she thought were cooler, and she somehow got, I believe, like 18 categories right or something like that out of 25.
She beat both of us. What the fuck? Oh my god.
um, yeah, so that was just insane that happened.
Did she win
But
anything for
aside,
that night? Like, did she get something from y'all, like a bowl or something?
no,
Or
nothing. It was
I
just,
would
it
have been
was
like,
just it was just for fun.
I would have prepared like a
Um,
gift basket with like goodies or something. I don't know.
Oh, the other thing is that we also like in that one that I printed, I actually included all the categories, including the random esports ones, right? So like I ended up voting on those as well, and maybe that's kind of where her edge came. I was second place, so like one less, like
Damn.
I got one less right than her or something. So yeah, like what the hell? But I feel like that doesn't count because she wasn't voting with the, she wasn't actually voting in an educated manner. Um,
I mean, honestly,
but
you don't need to. Apparently.
I guess, yeah. She was pretty much going like, oh, family game, Mario. I know Mario. Okay, that. Strategy game like Pikmin. That sounds cute. I'm gonna vote that. And she was just getting like all of them right. It was nuts. But anyway, so that being said,
Tell me about your
um,
thoughts on the show.
overall thoughts on the show. So here's the thing. Everybody is going hard at these game awards. Everybody's talking shit, right?
Hmm.
I agree with everything they're saying. I agree with
Yes,
everything everybody's saying.
I agree.
I also could very much talk shit, but I also feel like these are the same problems that I've been talking about every year, like over and over again, you know? So I'm almost kind of tired about it. Like I'm tired of like saying like we need more time for awards. We need like stop with the fucking rapid fire awards. That's annoying. Like maybe trim down the categories if you can't do all of them. Like we gotta, you gotta be this tall to ride when it comes to the ads and the announcements. Like as you said, Lewis, in a previous year, like every year of us doing this, we've had the same discussion, like, and so like I don't even fucking know what to say anymore.
I have a thought on this. Okay, I
Hmm.
think that I think the conversation is a little bit stronger this year than it's ever has been because I have bitched and complained that it's been more about the announcements than it has been about the awards. I have complained myself, and then I just dropped the complaints. I didn't even think I made that complaint last year. Like, I
Mhm.
have I have gone into like the stages of grief, and I'm on acceptance right now. So like,
Yeah, same.
so I haven't actually like I my expectations were set to like commercials. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
where I'm not tuning in for the commercials, but because I'm still tuning in for the awards myself personally. So that being said, like it almost feels validated because it's validating for me because I've always felt that way, and because I dropped the torch. I'm not championing more about the awards. Like I dropped that. I'm not fighting on that hill anymore. But now when
Yeah.
I see like this year, it feels like the fervor was turned up a notch where it's like it's even more like it's more like prevalent, like where the voices are being heard that hey, this is the balance is not right. I even seen like IGN tweeting like the stats were like
Yeah.
18% of the whole award show was dedicated to awards or whatever. I've even seen stats where it was like 9%, with
Yeah.
different metrics where they were controlling for different things, and they were like acceptance speeches were this long, announcements were this long, and then like this kind of stuff like presenters were this long or whatever. With the presenters were longer than the acceptance speeches, by the
Yeah.
way.
I
But yeah, I'm just gonna say like I feel validated, but I'm not really
mhm.
like I don't feel like very like strongly either because I've sort of given up that fight and I don't really like have a personal like I'm not gonna add to that to conversation. I think the conversation's happening plenty fine without me.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. It's like I almost feel like people are too late to the party in a way. It's like we've been talking about this for so long. Like I actually remember that I think I felt this way in the very first like game awards in this format, which was in 2014. And I remember but I used to so the first few years I used to cut them slack like, oh, they're still figuring out the format or whatever, like they'll figure it out over time. But we just hit year 9. This
Yeah.
was year 9 and they still, in fact, it felt like when it comes to like the pacing and the balance, it felt like this was the worst one like
They tip to like
ever. Like
commercials and stuff like that. Yeah.
cuz
Um, yeah.
when you think about the amount of categories that they did on the rapid fire announcements and the amount of categories that they actually gave speech time to, it was so like the like it felt like it was less than like 8 categories like got to out of like over 25 got to actually have
Yeah. Time on
like
stage.
speeches or somebody on stage, and then they were running them off stage after a minute as almost like some sort of like overcompensation
For
to
last
what
year.
Christopher
Yeah.
Judge did last year. And so like listen, there's still a lot in this show to love. I really want this show to become the show, like the respected, the one that everybody tunes in. Like I really want to believe in Jeff Keighley's capabilities of like turning this into like the Oscars of games, but it still isn't it.
Yeah.
Like it's far from being it. And I, even though it has the viewership and all of that stuff, just from like a quality standpoint, a pacing standpoint, just a showmanship standpoint, it's far from being it. And so I just really hope that now that everybody else is being very vocal about it, that he takes in that feedback and that we see change next year,
Yeah.
for the 10-year anniversary. But who knows? I'm not like I'm with you. I've kind of given up the fight and I'm just like I've accepted it and I'm just gonna show up expecting this again.
Yeah.
And then I'll let myself be positively surprised
Yes.
otherwise.
Exactly. That's kind of where I kind of like the show this year more than I have in any other years. My expectations were so like I guess this is kind of bad sounding, but my
Right.
expectations were so fucking low. Like I had like zero expectations. I didn't have any predictions for like announcements and stuff like that. I was sort of right because Nintendo did not show up really. Like they showed up to accept the awards, but they didn't show up for like marketing purposes. But like so because my expectations were so low, and I was just pleasantly surprised because I was kind of a little like the needle moved for me when some of those announcements. I'm like, okay, cool. Um,
Yeah.
I do gotta say that I have like two like little like nitpicks about the stuff. Number one, they were really fast on playing the music to play you out. Like that's a little they could have cut some slack on that. But number two, like I I am again I'm okay with the rapid fire stuff like because like I've become conditioned to like it or become okay with it. But
Yeah.
like I feel like there's two things they did. They used to like do content creator of the year. They used to make with Greg Miller with his speech or whatever, or Boogie with his speech. Like they
Yeah.
don't do those anymore. That kind of sucks that they don't have like a more of a like I feel like they've always content creator of the year or trending gamer at the time was like they had good speeches, and I feel like that they kind of took away a little bit by just rapid firing it. And then also it was a VTuber that won, so she had like a pre-recorded thing. Um, and by the way, the VTuber was streaming it live. By the way, they were surprised. VTuber was surprised that they won because
Hmm.
they all the nominees recorded a acceptance speech. So they had everyone record one. So that's
Right,
yeah.
right.
But
That makes
anyways,
sense.
what was I gonna say? The one thing I was gonna say about the rapid fire stuff is that I don't agree with them rapid firing best indie game. And the main reason is because, like, there are categories that you can rapid fire and get away with. I think indie game is
Right.
not one that you should. You could get away with it, but you shouldn't, because indie games need that spotlight. Because a lot of times, like
Right,
indie
right.
games get discovered, like so to speak. Like this is their big like inner sloth with Among Us or whatever. Like they're having the spotlight on them, and they can help push and bolster their game or a little bit more to the top. And I think they need it most instead of like these AAA studios. So I think that was a
Right.
wrong call because they have done like given stage time to that category before in the past, just like they did with Content Creator of the Year. So I feel like some of them were like you kind of sort of have to like pick and choose differently which ones that you rapid fire and yeah, like it just sucks that like the during the I feel like the one time you should not rush them off the stage is Game of the Year. Game of the Year is the last category to go, and the show is
Right.
already over. Like you don't need to play the music to get them off stage really fast because if it's a 10-minute speech, then the show's already over. Then you can like all Jeff Keighley does is goodbye everybody. We're seeing you next year. That's all he does. So you don't need
Right.
to cut him off. And the guy he like literally tweeted how he forgot to like announce that it's shadow dropped on Xbox because that was his job to do that. But during the whole like rush of stuff and trying to hurry
Right,
up,
right.
you forget that and you're like, damn, that was the big announcement. Like the biggest and one of the biggest announcements that happened for the Game Awards happened in a tweet because of the fucking fuck ups. Like yeah.
Right.
Anyways, take over.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. And it was funny too with that guy who's wearing the suit of armor, right? And they were showing him in the audience the whole time, like the director for Baldur's Gate 3, I believe. And I kept being like, "Who the hell is that? Like, who's wearing a suit of armor to the Game Awards?" But I knew it was like it must be someone important because they keep showing him. And so when he finally went up, I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." Kind of wish he committed though and had the helmet as well, but that's for it.
And it sucks because I'm
um,
pretty sure was it Baldur's Gate? I don't know if it was Baldur's Gate or Alan Wake, but somebody was doing their acceptance speech and they were like paying tribute to someone who had passed away during development. And then there's like the prompter,
right, right.
the teleprompter that people were tweeting and they were showing how it says please wrap it up, and the music was playing, and I'm like, that is so disrespectful. Like God, that's so
Yeah.
bad.
I
But he
mean,
had a
I mean,
bad
to be
rap.
to play devil's advocate here for a second, they did probably have the teleprompter on a timer, and that would have gone up regardless of
Yeah,
like what they were saying. But it made it like it almost like the
somebody on the inside tweeted that it's on a 30-second timer. So as soon as they start their speech, it goes. They press a button and it will pop up after 30
yeah.
seconds. Yeah.
So it was coincidental. It was like a sad coincidence that it happened right as they were talking about that. But I think it just pointed out that like they really should have done it differently. There's if they keep the show at the same length, there is enough time to do so much like to give there's enough time to give developers a lot more time for their speeches, and you can cut out from a lot of different ends.
Yeah. And
So I'm definitely with you on
I think
that.
all the nominees were given like told preemptively like you got 30 seconds for your speech or whatever. I think everyone was told that,
Hmm.
and it kind of sucks. And I feel like it should be a 1 minute before you start getting the minute or the music play you out. I think that's kind of like I don't know if like 30 seconds is enough to give a speech because here's the thing: one of the best moments in Game Awards history was the acceptance speech for That Dragon Cancer. You will never get
Hmm.
that moment if you're limiting everybody like that.
Right, right. And also if you're not letting the indie devs on stage.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
um
And then
a hundred percent.
I've seen a lot of like Twitter call outs where people were like calling out Jeff Keighley for so many different things, but one of them that I do remember off the top of my head was how there were a lot of layoffs this year in the industry, and he was not mentioning that. Like, it's supposed to be like the celebration of games or whatever, and he was trying to keep it positive, and I guess that makes sense. But also, like, it's kind of feels like almost a bit of like a conflict of interest because he can't really truly be an ambassador for developers because he can't bite the hand that feeds because all the studios and companies got he's got his hand in their pockets or whatever the phrase is. But basically, you can't call them out because they're also your sponsors. You know what I mean? So it kind of
Right,
sucks
right.
that like you people want him to be a little bit more real, but like he's kind of like being this banal Ryan Seacrest type. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I also saw some commentary on like there was kind of this expectation that the Game Awards was gonna take some kind of stance like against like things that are happening in the industry or even things that are happening in the real world. And that's a complicated one, but I what I will say is that like I do find it a bit hypocritical that a few years ago they took a dig at Activision when there was all that stuff happening with they were like, um they said we are not, Activision is not going to be at this show because, the way they treat their employees or yada yada, right? And they were clearly, to me, in hindsight, just paying lip service to the fact that Activision did not want to show anything at that show, and they were taking advantage of that because since then they have proceeded to not make any statements of the sort, and then also show games from whatever company they want to, regardless of whether they're involved with controversies or not. So, I guess the inconsistency of that stance is just what bothers me. They put in precedent to be like, oh, we're here taking a stance, against this developer, but then they just did it that one time, right? And like as more, like if Ubisoft is paying the bill for them to go and show Skull and Bones or whatever, like they at that point they don't care about all the problems with Ubisoft or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they should go one way or the other. Like I actually don't know yet what my opinion is about that because even if a company has toxic things going on, that doesn't take away from the developers that are there and that just want to show their game and are potentially not involved with any of the toxic bullshit. Um, so I'm not taking a side here either way. I just think the inconsistency is weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so all right. Well, all that said, let's go through the categories. Let's go through our predictions first here.
All right.
Uh, I'm just gonna do this at the Game Awards base. All
Okay.
right, but
Rapid
please
fire.
interject.
Okay.
Interject whenever. So
Okay.
big one, Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3. We both got that right. So props to us. I think it was pretty easily predictable, honestly. Best game direction, we both went for Baldur's Gate 3, Sweep Theory, but they gave it to Alan Wake 2.
It was like a two-game sweep thing going on, but also it's the
Yeah.
first time in our tracker, like at least our 3 years of 4 years of data, whatever the fuck, where game direction and game of the year split. It's like the Oscar
Yeah.
thing because like the Oscars have the last two awards of the night are best director and movie of the year, right? And so they always in tandem with each other. They're never split. But whenever our Oscar race is so split with movie of the year, they would split the category. Like Brokeback Mountain and Crash split one year, but generally speaking, they're always in tandem. So
Right.
this is a weird one. We got it wrong.
Best narrative went to Alan Wake 2, and we both predicted that. Best art direction. Lewis was going for Hi-Fi Rush, and I was going for Alan Wake 2, and the winner was Alan Wake 2.
I think that the more
Um,
stylized game should have won, but whatever.
Best score and music. We both got this one wrong and went to Final Fantasy 16. Lewis was thinking Hi-Fi Rush, and I was thinking Baldur's Gate.
I just gotta say, if your game revolves around your soundtrack and you lose this category, something happened. Something wrong happened.
Here's the funny thing: the game that revolves around audio, Hi-Fi Rush, did win Best Audio Design, but then we both went wrong with that one. We both voted on the horror
Horror
games,
games, yeah.
Resident Evil, and Dead Space. Um, for best performance, I got one over you by picking Neil Newborn from Baldur's Gate. He won, and you voted for Cameron Monaghan from Jedi Survivor. You were the better Respawn fan there, but you ended up being punished for that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also, by the
Games
way,
for imp.
just a quick thing.
Uh-huh.
For Baldur's Gate, was that guy a main character or a side character? 'Cause I heard that guy was like like a berry that you fucked or something like that. I don't even know, or some kind of thing where it's like
I I don't
a
think it's
side
that.
character.
So I think he's a side character that went viral, basically. Like kind of
Ah,
like the lady in Resident Evil
yeah,
Village,
yeah,
right? The
yeah, yeah,
vampire lady. Like
yeah. Lady
she
Dimitrescu,
wasn't really. Yeah, she was just this is maybe a little
the
spoilery, but
first
she was.
boss, the first boss. Yeah.
Yeah, she was the villain in a segment of the game. And she won the award there too.
Yeah.
Um Games for Impact. The winner was Chia, which was my vote. Lewis had voted for Space for the Unbound. On best ongoing game, we both went for the Final Fantasy 14, and this year they gave it to Cyberpunk 2077,
Ah,
which is a very odd choice in my
yeah.
opinion,
I got
for this
I
category.
got a couple of words to say. Number one, it's always been Final Fantasy 14 since we've been, doing the show.
Doing
I've
this,
been
yeah.
calling it the Final Fantasy 14 award. But also like the one time you want to break it and you did it for Cyberpunk. I mean, like you could have at least done it for Fortnite. I would have given you more props for that.
Or
Uh,
Apex Legends,
or Apex.
like, well, here's the thing. It makes me question the purpose of this category, right? And I was listening back and I did say, well, who knows, maybe Cyberpunk will win it or something like that when we're talking about it. But like my understanding of best ongoing game is that it was a category to reward like an online live service game that's getting frequent updates, right? Cyberpunk is a game that got a DLC this year, which I think is a little different. That
Yeah.
almost feels like it should be its own thing, or maybe we just got to rethink this category, right? Like, I guess it is like the game that's received the best expansion this year, maybe, and Cyberpunk got an expansion this year. But yeah, I would not have typically thought of that as a even a nominee
I think it's a
for
little bit of
this.
like shifting the narrative because Cyberpunk released in such a bad state and now it's basically like
Right.
sort of signaling to the gamer audience that Cyberpunk is good now, so
One of the people that watched the show with me did say that like it's almost like we're rewarding bad behavior by giving them this award, which I think is. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think it's an interesting standpoint, right? Oh, the game came out so bad that now that they fixed it, they get an award. Maybe that could even be a new category.
it's like congratulations, you want a cookie? Like
Yeah.
but it's kind of interesting because like I think No Man's Sky got rewarded, you know, for fixing or promising like on your delivering on your promises made
Yeah.
like after the fact, and I feel like the narrative is now like yeah nobody like talks about the old days of No Man's Sky, so I wonder if that's gonna happen where it's like Cyberpunk is like a game that people want to get because it's like oh it's actually good let's get this Idris Elba
Yeah.
DLC and get it going.
Um, that's fair. I just hope people remember when they're pre-ordering their next game, Best indie game, it was Sea of Stars, and we both got that one right. Uh, for best mobile game, the winner was Honkai Star Rail, and both of us missed this category. I guess we're both not. I didn't even know this game existed, so I think we're both just out of the mobile game loop
So
right now.
I saw a YouTuber. They said that it was obvious that Honkai Star Rail was going to win. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess they knew. So, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's just we're not into the mobile community enough. Best community support, we both went for Final Fantasy 14 because once again, it was one of those categories that they always won, but we were wrong. Baldur's Gate 3 won, which I was also surprised about.
It's their first time in the category too. So yeah,
I mean, it's a new game, so
yeah.
that makes sense. Innovation and accessibility, that's one that you got over me. I voted on Spider-Man 2, and Lewis voted on Forza Motorsport and got that right.
Yeah.
For best VR and AR game, we both showed our Sony bias going to Horizon Call of the Mountain, but the winner was Resident Evil Village VR mode.
I feel like they got that one wrong, but whatever.
Best action game, we voted on Hi-Fi Rush, but it went to Armored Core 6. And honestly, I feel like we should have seen this one coming because the Game Awards audience loves the what is it called? From Software games. They always vote for the From Software games. But oh well.
Yeah.
Uh, Best action adventure. Here's where once again Lewis was a better Respawn fan than I am, and voted for Jedi Survivor.
I want to give myself this point because I think I was gonna vote. If I remember correctly, when we recorded this, you went first, and I was gonna vote Tears of the Kingdom, but because you went first, I changed my vote to accommodate that. I didn't want to copy you.
Yeah, to be different, but hey, that's how I lost the last 2 years. So
Yeah,
just saying.
I was gonna vote to, but then I was like, you know what? I can't, because I think when we were going at the time, when we were like, we had a lot of like in a row, we were the same ones, and so we were
Hmm.
like, okay, there's too many in a row, so we gotta split this. I deviated from my original plan for Tears of the Kingdom. That sucks.
So Tears of the Kingdom was the winner for best action adventure. I got that one over Lewis, as we were just saying. For best RPG was Baldur's Gate 3. We both saw that, and everybody else. Best fighting game, Street Fighter 6. We both got that. Best family game was Super Mario Wonder. We both got that. Which, by the way, I've gotten a little bit farther on that one, and it's a good game. That's pretty neat. Best sim and strategy. That's where we had our little conversation about Fire Emblem or Pikmin, and Lewis went with Fire Emblem, and I went with Pikmin,
I'm
and
a I'm a
Pikmin ended up being right.
I'm a better Fire Emblem fan than you, Dan.
Yeah, like I said, Engage just wasn't as good. So, best sports slash racing game went to Forza, and this has maintained the consistency. By the way, it's always the racing game that wins this category.
Yeah.
We both got that right. Best multiplayer. Lewis went to Super Mario Wonder, and I voted on Baldur's Gate 3, which was the winner. I voted on it just because it was Baldur's Gate, and I was like voting on them on most categories that they were in, but I was actually kind of surprised with this one. Um, Content Creator of the Year. We did this as a tiebreaker category, and we both got it wrong. I don't even need to.
Yeah.
I don't even want to read it.
Yeah.
For best debut, I Lewis picked Vemba and I picked Cocoon, and I got that one right.
God.
Most anticipated, Lewis beat me by picking Final Fantasy VII, which won instead of Hades 2. Best adaptation, we both picked The Last of Us correctly. And then finally, for best esports game, Lewis picked Valorant and got it right, and I picked Counter-Strike 2 and got it wrong.
Uh, so overall, final results, I got 11 right, which is
Feels pretty tight though, right? Like I did you even count this right? Because as I was going through it, it almost felt like a tie.
no, no.
Um,
You can recount it. I'll recap it. You can manually count it. The way I did it is during the Game Awards, I had my phone out with the Google Sheet up, and I manually added the number as they were announcing. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, I got 11 right out of 27, and Dan got 15 out of 27, which means that Dan was the winner. So we're each 2-2 because the 2020 game he won, and I'll give you the reason why he won in 2020. But the 2021 and 22, I was the two-peat in a row. I won with 10 out of 26, and then 17 out of 27 last year, which means that I still have the all-time highest win, like 17 out of 27 last year. I'll always hold that one. Like that's the new bar to clear, right? And I just got to say that the only reason why Dan won 2020 is because I was vehemently against The Last of Us Part 2 winning so many awards, so I voted against it. That's the only reason why. Otherwise, plus I think that was our first year, so we also didn't know about the sweep rule because games always sweep for like we noticed the pattern there and stuff like that, and we just got better at
yeah.
predicting, which is kind of crazy that we didn't like constantly one up ourselves. Both of us like we both kind of slided a little bit, but also because I think one of the things that you're gonna notice is like there was two games that sweep, where it's always been every year's always been one. They split it between Baldur's Gate and like Alan Wake, and it's kind of funny that I want to mention that Spider-Man 2 got 7 nominees and won zero. So
Yeah.
I think Miles Morales also has suffered the same fate where it didn't win. So I think that's why we didn't go for Miles Morales because
Even the first Spider-Man was a similar situation. So it's like I kind of almost predicted that. Like you see this with a bunch of awards shows. I feel like there's always the one thing that gets a bunch of nominations and no awards.
yeah,
Like I remember there was an Oscars where the movie was uh Christian Bale, Amy Adams.
The
They're like
fighter.
con artists.
Oh, no, not the fighter. Okay. Christian Bale. The
American Hustle.
American Hustle. Yeah.
Yeah, like that movie. It was like it was one of the most nominated movies, and it didn't win on I think any of the categories, or at least none of the major ones. And it's there. It's a phenomenon that happens when it's like I feel like sometimes you have a game like
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
which is great in every single like way, right? Like, but it is not considered the best at any one thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like if you had like if you split into different categories, like it is a 9 on all the categories, but it is not a 10 on every
On any
single
of them.
one
Yeah. Yeah.
according to the voting
Yeah.
public, right? Like so I think that's kind of what happened with all of the Spider-Man games. And it sucks, like, because I think it deserved, like,
Something.
I
Yeah.
think it deserved something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even, I mean, look at Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like,
It would
when
have been
that
one.
came out, it would have been, that would have been expected to be the one to sweep or to be one of the ones to sweep. And it won just one category, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it just sucks. I do like the fact that we're noticing these patterns and stuff like that. I'm glad I kept this doc and didn't like delete them and stuff like that. We lost the 2020 the data or whatever. I'm pretty sure we did. We have to go back and actually manually listen to the shows to find out,
Yeah.
and I don't want to do
Yeah. I
that.
just listened to it and like scrolled through it and found where we were like tallying up the results.
Yeah.
Um, All right, so now that we've gone through the awards, I do not want to go much longer here, but let's just kind of go through the main announcements from the show, main moments from the show. So, um, rapid fire again. We had a new Monster Hunter announced, Monster Hunter Wilds coming in 2025. That was at the very end of the show. Hideo Kojima officially revealed a new project. It's coming to Xbox. It's called Project OD, and he's doing it with horror movie director Jordan Peele from Get Out, Nope.
And others to be
Um,
announced in the future.
yes. I was really excited about this one. It was cool to see them both on stage. The footage that they showed looked like super like photorealistic, with these incredible like facial animations. I have no idea what the game is, but I here's the thing. I'm not a Kojima super fan when it comes to his games. I actually haven't played the majority of his games. But I like that the games industry has Kojima as a character.
An
You know, like
auteur.
I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, like I like that we get to see him come on stage and just kind of show us something weird and that we get excited about it. Um so I really liked that we had that moment. We had a God of War Ragnarok DLC, basically a roguelite mode that just it was a shadow drop out right now. There's a game based on the Blade Marvel superhero in development by Arcane Studios, developers of Dishonored and Deathloop. I think that's a pretty big deal. Um, we don't really have much to go off of yet, but just based on the developer pedigree, I think it's a big deal. Sega had this trailer where they announced 5 new games. They're basically bringing back all their old classic franchises, including Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Crazy Taxi.
Yeah.
Why do you think about that way to announce it, Lewis? Like they like announced like 5 new games at once in one trailer. I don't know how I feel about that.
Maybe they don't have any like thing new because like I think they're just saying that they're resurrecting all these IPs. They're all gonna get new entries in the series. I think a lot. I follow a YouTuber that is a Sega fan, and he got hyped as fuck. So Sega fans are
Hmm.
eating. I think it's also good because like I think they sort of like attributed to like Sega's like other financial success being able to greenlight and bankroll these projects. So most of these gonna be like fan desired projects, which is pretty good. And I think a lot of people are hyped about specifically Crazy Taxi of all things. So yeah,
Mm,
cool.
okay. So I'm now going to skip around a little bit. I'm going to tell you, like, make my personal choices here, Lewis. But you're welcome to bring up other things later. Okay.
Okay.
So the developers of No Man's Sky are making a new game. It's called Light No Fire, which I think is an awful name. Personally, I think is a really weird game name.
Yeah.
But the game itself looked cool. Now, let's keep in mind we just said this about Cyberpunk. Like, be careful with this developer. Don't get your hopes up and then get disappointed maybe wait till the game's out, look at reviews, look at how it, how it's shaping up before you go and spend your money on it. That is my recommendation. Although that said, look cool. Um, we finally got a date for Skull and Bones. Let's see if they hit it this time. Pirate game from Ubisoft that's been in development for like 10 years. It's now finally coming on February 16, 2024. Lewis, are they going to hit this date?
Hell no. I don't believe it. Especially with it being so soon. I just don't believe that. There's no like. I don't. It doesn't feel tangible. It doesn't feel real. I don't know.
I
Yeah, no.
listen, at this point I feel like they got it. They got to hit it. There's a new game from the developers of Ori, Moon Studios. Now, I don't know how I feel about this because it sure doesn't look like Ori at all.
Yeah.
It's a very different kind of game. The paragraph here at IGN describes it as a Diablo-like ARPG. It's slated to release on Q1 2024, and I kind of gotta have to like I really like the Ori games. There's been some controversial stuff that's come out from the studio, so that's also an interesting example, right, of what I was saying earlier. Like, Jeff Keighley still took their money this year. Um, but like, I mean, maybe it's gonna be cool to see them do something different. I don't know. I'm sort of in a wait and see
I am
approach here.
since I really loved Ori 1 and 2, right? I trust the studio and I
Hmm.
trust that they're so I'm like it was one of the announcements that sort of moved the needle with me because I was like, okay, Moon Studios, you got me. You have my
Right.
attention, right? So I think if you delivered like 2 10 out of 10 games back to back, I think you gotta give it the benefit of the doubt, especially with it being, I think it's like, what is it? It looks like a dungeon crawler type game or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm like, that's not kind of my style, but like I'm pretty sure maybe they'll have some kind of unique hook that can make it something more palatable for me. So I also didn't like spoil the ending of like Ori 2 when we talked about it, but now that we both played it, you know that they couldn't make an Ori 3. There's just no way. Like I don't see unless they did something radically different, I don't think they could make an Ori 3. Like it's not possible from a story perspective in my opinion. So I think moving on to something new, even a new genre, it's kind of in the cards, and I can only hope that they deliver something that's kind of get people talking about. So yeah.
All right. So the developers from Untitled Goose Game, developer House, showed this new game called Big Walk, and that's got to be one of the weird. I've seen a lot of weird indie games. That's got to be one of the weirdest ones that I've ever seen at a show of this size. It basically has these like photorealistic environments, but then these like really like odd looking characters walking through them, and I have no idea what to make of this. But knowing that it's the makers of Untitled Goose Game, I know that this is probably going to have some
Quirky.
like meme like value and it's going to have some notoriety when it eventually comes out. I would expect.
I like how like
Um
they treated House like it's like a household name. Like they paraded them. I was like like House is like, oh, we got House. Like I feel like that was cool that they but because like I'm pretty sure they won indie game of the year. I mean they won game of the year, but they also won indie too. So like again, the Game Awards propping up a developer. I mean the Game Awards is kind of the reason why we propped up like Joseph Ferris, and of course they announced like the remake
right,
of
right.
Brothers. I'm a little bit of two minds of this one right here. I gotta tell you right now, I kind of don't know if I
Mhm.
want that. But go ahead.
Which one, the Big Walk
No,
or the Brothers?
brothers. Yeah,
So I mean I wanted to mention that one too. So I as people know, everybody that knows me
knows us.
has probably has probably heard me talk about Brothers, and I do really love that game. And it's nice to see it brought forward to new consoles. I think that I don't know why are you not sure about it? Because I was pretty, that was probably one of the bigger announcements of the show for me. Like just the fact that it's going to be easier for me to get more people to play it. Like, hey, like you can play it right now. It's on the PS5,
You
and
could.
it's in this new
It's like, hey,
format.
have you heard about this new? Have you heard about this game called Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons? You can buy it on the Nintendo Switch right now.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So
So no, like I think the game is already like it looks. I mean, it's HD enough, right? I mean, it does have
right.
its age, but like gameplay wise, it's good. Like it's. and people like you can even play it with two Joy Cons, like split Joy-Con mode, and have it play it as a two-player game, not a one-player game, or whatever. So it's like a new
Right.
experience and stuff on the Switch. So I think that that's fine. Like, and when I looked at the trailer, it's like literally a shot-for-shot recreation of the exact same cutscenes that a way I remember it in my head, anyways. Like, like
Hmm.
my memory is HDFI for me, or like sorry, like, excuse me, it's already in HD. My memory's 4K it up for me, so you know what I mean. Like, I don't need that remake, and I think that it's already like on PS4 and Xbox One, therefore backwards compatible on PS5 and Xbox Series, and it was ported to the Switch. You don't
You
really
know,
need that.
that's fair. I played that game on the PS3.
Same,
And
same.
then I don't remember where I replayed it when we did the podcast, but I think I just have the PS3 version in my head, which I'm sure still looks good. But thinking about it, I didn't realize how accessible it already was. Like I wasn't thinking about it in that. In my head, I was like, oh, they're bringing a PS3 game forward to like the new gen stuff. But I guess you have a point. It's probably already like out everywhere anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
So I
this
think
game,
it's not a. I'm just gonna say it's like an unnecessary remake, and the fact of the matter is, all it is it's a visual facelift, and it just doesn't really move the needle for me. And I don't know if I'm gonna
right?
support it. Yeah.
Um, I do like that we are getting to see certain developers, like some developers are becoming kind of recurrent appearances at some of these shows. Obviously, we all know Kojima, we know Joseph Ferris, but this girl, Ikumi Nakamura,
Mm-hmm.
I was happy to see her on stage. She showed like she's working on a new game with a new studio. Wasn't much to see yet, but I was just happy to see her there because she has a cool like fun personality, and she's also becoming one of those people that is now, I think it's now like the third time that we see her in one of these or just random shows. And so I was just happy to see that. um I like developers becoming like regular, like kind of regular faces at these things. Visions of Mana. Louis, I'm excited to see if you have any thoughts on this. I thought this looked pretty good. Like, and it's funny. The trailer started, and I was wondering like, what is this? Is this Dragon Quest? Like, what's going on? And then when I saw like the word mana on it, I was like, oh, that's cool because that franchise is old. Like, I don't think we've had a new entry in that franchise in a long time.
Yeah, we had the remakes on PS4 that people actually didn't even like. Like the remakes, people were like, just
Hmm.
play the original. Like that's kind of bad when the remakes are like poo pooed like that. It's like
Yeah.
that I guess. But either way, like there were entries in the Game Boy Advance that I never played. So I've only played like Secret of Mana on the original Super Nintendo. I really love the game. I really love the soundtrack, and I hope that like if you're gonna make this Visions of Mana, that the number one, the soundtrack's got to be a banger. That's number one. It's got to be. It's like almost like a necessity. And then number two, like it kind of actually does like give me like Secret of Mana vibes because it's like they have like the combat looks like if I were to take the Super Nintendo and 3Dify it and like make it like grand, it kind of almost feels like right in line. So I'm actually kind of like very much like you got my interest. You know, like I'm gonna keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
So I'm very like I'm not gonna say I'm like lukewarm, but I'm very much like not excited, but like not lukewarm either. It's somewhere like positive feeling towards it.
Yeah.
And I did send that trailer to my friend, and he hasn't replied back to me, but because he's not a gamer, but he does love Secret of Mana, and so we'll. I don't know if he'll ever like. Well, I don't see him face to face very often, so when I do, I'll ask him what he thought about the trailer at some point.
All right. We got to see Hellblade 2 again. I think that was one of my announcement predictions, or both of us
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
maybe. I think it came up when we're talking about it. Um, Listen,
I, okay, before you go, I just gotta say,
mm,
trailer of the show.
really?
Okay,
Okay,
go on.
okay. I gotta watch it again because I feel like maybe people were talking to me while it was on the screen. Like I processed it. I was like, this looks cool, but what I was gonna say is like, can we just get this game already? Because it's been so long, and like it took so long for us to see it again too. And they gave us a year. I was really hoping for something
Give
more
me
than a
like
year because
Q or maybe a Q in there or a month or something. I don't know.
yeah, something because
Fall,
when I
summer.
see
Yeah.
2024, there's part of my like the back of my brain that goes like, maybe 2025, because like we got so used to that. We got so used to like the 2023 becoming like the 2019 becoming 2020, the 2020 becoming 2021. Like it happened over and over again. So there's part of me that almost doesn't quite believe it yet. But hey, It looks beautiful. I've been saying this. I think this is gonna be Xbox's Uncharted, like Xbox's Last of Us, basically. I'm really hoping for that. I hope they don't drop the ball with this one. You know, apparently they dropped the ball with Redfall, Starfield, this questionable.
Yeah.
I I hope this is it, you
I
know?
think that the game has way more polish than the last time we saw it. That's why I was very
Yeah.
excited. It looked damn near like a complete game from what I saw. Like, it was clearly like gameplay oriented, and also they before they even showed the gameplay, they had the performance, the live performance. So the music was already like hooking me, and then they played the music again in the trailer, and I'm like, God damn, this is good. So
Yep.
for me, like the game just looks like very well put together. It looks like it's coming along, and I'm like, ooh, it's perfect. It's getting the right amount of time in the oven is how I sort of interpreted it for me. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I have just two more shout outs. Surprised at how low this is in the IGN article. But way down there, there's a new game from Daniel Mullins called Pony Island 2 Panda Circus. Now, this was a very weird trailer. I had no idea what was going on. But Daniel Mullins is the developer of the game Inscription, that some of you may remember from a few years ago. It was a game of the year like nominee. It actually won a bunch of awards. Not at the Game Awards, but it won a bunch of stuff at like I think it was either the GDC or the Dice, like one of the other award shows. And it was a very cool and unique indie game that was unlike anything else. And similarly, this trailer looks also like unlike anything else. It's almost like multiple games in one, which spoiler is kind of what Inscription is as well. And so I was just kind of excited to see like, okay, like this is what he's working on next. And I think that it's one of those like sleeper things. Like when like people are not talking about it, people are not did not pay too much attention to this. When this comes out, I'm sure it will be a big deal in the indie community and maybe even making it to the mainstream. Um, and then I have a final shout out
okay,
after that, which my final shout out is World of Goo 2 because heck yeah, I love World of Goo and I would have never seen this one coming.
yeah.
I would have never seen this one coming.
World of Goo
Did
was one of the first games that were on the Nintendo eShop for the Switch, so it got ported there.
yeah,
So yeah.
it was one of the old like you know what I think about when I think of World of Goo, Lewis? I don't know if you watched we must have talked about this before.
Hmm.
That indie game documentary where they did it was like Super Meat Boy,
Fez.
Braid, and Fez.
Hmm.
Yes. And it was that same kind of era-ish of indie
Yeah,
games. And we had
2008. Yeah, 2008. Yeah.
it, like Xbox Live Arcade stuff, you had the PSN stuff, you had like Steam kind of like starting to become like a breeding ground for indie games. And then what people sometimes forget is that we also had WiiWare on the Wii side. And World of Goo was one of those big games on WiiWare. It later got ported to PC. And seeing this, I was just like, oh my God, like they're bringing World of Goo back. I just like, I started asking questions like, what the hell have these developers been up to all this time? Because it's been like 15 years. And I went and looked them up, and it's kind of weird. Like they left the company, the original company. It was three guys, I think. Then they formed a different one, and they put out some random other um games. Like I think like Little Inferno might be the same, some of the same people. But yeah, here it is. So like I don't know. I thought that was cool. I don't know if I ever beat World of Goo, but I did have a good bit of fun with it. So
But new the
it
new
was just one of
oh, I was gonna say the
Mhm.
new game looks way more polished and awesome. Like it looks like they were
Yeah.
upping the stakes there.
And it's just one of those things where I guess like that one just made me grin because it was just something I never would have like totally out of left field for me. Like would have never seen coming.
Hmm.
All right, you
You're forgetting one major announcement. All right, this is the biggest announcement that IGN made a pop-off video for, and that's the
okay?
God of War Ragnarok DLC drop, the
I
semi shadow drop. It just came out today.
right, semi shadow drop. You know, I did mention it in the beginning when we were going down, but I mentioned it in a as a
Footnote,
footnote.
footnote.
But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
rogue
Um,
roguelite mode on God of War.
so you can never really go to Valhalla in the game, so it's kind of cool that you finally can go to fucking Valhalla. You know, like so it's kind of like they tease you within like the menu, and you can't go there. It's not good. You can't travel there, and it's only for like the final chapter for like very scripted stuff. So that's cool. Um, or is it Jotunheim? I can't even remember what the fuck. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I just gotta say that it was a bit of like I felt like a misdirect the way they announced it, because it's like they put like December, and then they like slowly faded in 2023, like the 12th or whatever, and then like free DLC, like it's like that was kind of really good how like they slowly like, because in my head before they announced that it was free DLC coming like in 5 days, um, in my head I was thinking that it was gonna be like akin to like Uncharted Lost Legacy, where it was gonna be a standalone DLC that you can you know you know what I
Right.
mean. You like I was not thinking Uncharted. I was thinking didn't like The Last of Us One like have like that Left Behind DLC? So it's like standalone, but it's also a chapter, like a little like short adventure. In my head, I was thinking that it was gonna be a paid DLC, like that's what I was thinking. So I
Right.
was very pleasantly surprised. But when I started seeing a lot of combat before they went into like because they were like cinematic or whatever, when they started going into just gameplay or whatever, and I was just combat encounters, I was like, oh, that's not doesn't quite seem very beefy. And then that was like, oh, it's a roguelike.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, it doesn't quite it's not quite as exciting, but it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That what I'm gonna say might not be like 100% fair. Like I listen, the more content people want to add to their games post release, that's cool. Especially if it's free, it's cool. Like I'm not gonna complain about it because it's free. But I think the fact that it is free does say something about it. Like this is this is not gonna be something um
Major. Yeah.
that they yeah, I'm sure they put development time on it, but they probably did not put enough development time on it to justify a separate $20 $30 purchase, um as has been the case with other more like story driven DLCs. But hey, some extra fun you can have with the game if you want to go and enjoy more of the combat,
Yeah.
um, so good, cool. So yeah, Louis, I want to leave it up for you to do any more shout outs you want to do. I do just have to ask though, do you have anything to say about that Dragon Ball game?
No, I mean it definitely looks like akin to like a Budokai game. So I haven't really been into those games since like the PS2, PSP days, um, and I haven't really played a Dragon Ball game since Fighters. And Fighters is a 2D like Street Fighter esque.
I was
Yeah,
surprised they didn't use the word Budokai in the name, by the
yeah.
way. Either that or fighter, like somehow tie
Tenkaichi.
it into fighters or yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's basically akin to those, and I'm surprised they didn't like call it like Budokai 5 or whatever or 4 or whatever the next one
Right.
is. It's kind of would have helped with the branding, but either way, it does look cool and it looks good. And if like the reviews are really overwhelmingly positive, then I'll definitely pick it up. I haven't played one of those since like again like the PSP was the last time I played one, and they were like the shit back in the day. They were like a must need or must have kind of back then. Um, but I do want to say one last like closing thoughts overall about the Game Awards themselves, and not my idea. And I saw various tweets of different people saying the same thing, so I don't know who said it first. But I actually, since Jeff Keighley has Summer Game Fest and the Game Awards, and they're basically like 6 months apart essentially, like
Hmm.
I kind of want to like sort of give it up to those people that are championing that possible idea, or what if you rebrand the Game Awards and just not call it the Game Awards, because you have Summer Game Fest, you can call it Winter Game Fest, and people were saying they should just call it Winter Game Fest because it's all announcements and commercials and stuff like that.
Right.
And
Right.
so like I would even like be a little bit more insulting with it and just call it Winter Game Fest featuring Game Awards. And then that would be like the most like
Well,
on the nose and very apropos, They're just saying. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about this too. Like, is the Game Awards could be part of it still, and the thing is, like, maybe, and I was playing around with this idea in my head. Like, it feels so simple to fix it, right? Like change the threshold, like pick the best stuff, shorten it, yada yada. But maybe they can't do that because maybe the cost to run the show is so, maybe I'm oversimplifying it here without having all the information. Maybe the cost to run the show is so high that they need all of these sponsors and all of these ads, all this extra stuff so that they can afford it. And therefore they kind of have no choice but to put all this stuff in.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, what if the solution is to actually make the show even longer, but then break it up where it's like, hey, we're gonna have the Game Awards showcase, and that goes from like 5 p.m. to 7 or whatever. And then the main award show happens from 7 to 9. And then we're gonna do like a post show after 9 with like more
I've
stuff. You know what
s-
I mean? Like
I've seen
it,
YouTubers actually like championing the idea of a Saturday and Sunday, like a 2-day event where one's the commercials and one's the awards.
right.
Like I think Sunday would make
Um
sense because like Oscars and like Emmys and Grammys are always on Sundays. So if you make it like the Sunday show specifically awards only, and then the Saturday show be the commercials and the game reveals and the hype trains and your
yeah.
sponsorships, and you would see like where if you have them on 2 days, you would see like okay, you have 110 million viewers, people tuning in live. What are they tuning in for? Are they tuning in for the awards or for the reveals? And if you get the reveals, that's
I,
where if people are tuning in for the reveals, let's be real, most of the people are, then you get that concentrated on one day and you get all your because ad placement, it's all about eyeballs. If you know you're gonna get your eyeballs there,
mhm.
you buy your spot there. You know what I mean? So
I think the concern is that then like the actual awards part would have less viewership, and maybe Jeff Keighley doesn't want that.
yeah, but
Maybe he wants.
then you people can be
Yeah,
happy because then people will get what they want. If they want to tune in for the awards and
exactly.
they only want acceptance speeches, and then there you go, you have
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like that idea, but I'm mostly in favor of the rebranding just because like it sets the expectations correctly. If you were to rebrand it Winter Game Fest featuring Game Awards, I know it sounds funny and insulting, but like at least
Mhm.
at least you know what you're getting. So
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair
yeah.
enough. Yeah, my sister, whenever she's watched it with me a few times actually, and whenever she does it, she's just always surprised. Like what are we watching? Like, is this the Game Awards? Like, she gets like she'll be very like she'll sit there like I think it was the second time that she watched it with me, and she sat down and she was very engaged in the beginning. She was like excited, like okay, let's do this. And then about an hour in, she's like looking at her phone, like bored, like what is going on here? Just because it's just to her like she's not interested in all the
Yeah, like
like I guess
you don't tune into the Oscars for the new trailers, and you don't tune into the Grammys for the new tracks that are premiering there. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like, so it just kind of it sucks that that's how it is. But I think the games industry is just different that way. Kind of sort of accepted it that way. So yeah,
All right. Well, Lewis, as Matthew McConaughey would say, all right, all right, all right.
yeah, he was
We
there.
didn't say that at all. How which by the way, how bad I hated that joke, by the way, like the joke where he's like, I wanted to do that, but instead I'm gonna say pew pew pew. God.
It was fine. It was cute enough. It was
I
inoffensive for me.
I cringed way too hard. But anyway, there was that. Um thank you everybody for listening. I don't know when we're gonna see y'all again,
Hmm.
but we'll see you next time. Maybe Summer Game Fest
Yeah,
next year. Maybe something else. I don't know. Maybe if the Switch 2 gets revealed
yeah.
in March,
Hmm.
April, something like that. But thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you enjoy the rest of your year. I
Talk
guess
to you.
happy Merry
Merry
Christmas, Happy
Christmas.
Holidays, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Happy New Year, and it's been wonderful to have y'all.
yeah. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.